welcome to, is it Monday? Yes, Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we've got a puzzle called Whisper of the Killer Snake by Joseph Namer, and this has only just recently appeared on Logic Masters Germany, and it appeals to many things I love about Sudoku. Firstly, it's by Joseph Namer, and that should be enough really, because Joseph's puzzles are always an absolute joy to solve. But secondly, it involves snakes that we have to build in the grid from these killer cage totals, and I believe in this puzzle it is all right if your snake does touch itself, so there should be innuendo aplenty during this solve. We shall see. I'll read you the rules, which are quite lengthy, I'm just noticing, in a moment. I've got a few things to tell you about first. Firstly, if you've not watched the videos from the last couple of days on the channel, you really ought to. Fry the Guy produced one of the most sensational killer Sudokus I've ever solved yesterday, which just involved killer cages that all summed to 14. It was ridiculously clever, really amazing. And in fact, the moment I finished the video and pressed stop, I went back to our emails on Cracking the Cryptic, and I had an email from none other than Fistamafel saying I really should look at some of Fry the Guy's puzzles, because they really are incredible, and he actually recommended another of Fry the Guy's puzzles, which I hope to look at some point in the future as well. So if Fistamafel is recommending them, you know that Fry the Guy is doing something right. What else? Oh yeah, well, the other puzzle I thought was absolutely incredible recently was this Cobra Roll Classic Sudoku by Jovial. Do have a look at that. It's an completely incredible new technique that Jovial's built into that Sudoku. So if you want to brush up on your classic Sudoku skills, do take a look at it. You won't regret it. Now it's nearly the 1st of September. 1st of September is Looney Tunes time on Patreon. So if you're a patron of the channel, or if you've ever thought of becoming a patron, join the something like nearly 6,000 other Sudoku lovers who are members of our Patreon page. It's a couple of bucks a month, and we're going to be releasing the series of Looney Tunes puzzles, as I say, 1st of September, and if you manage to get through them, send in your answers, and that will give you a chance to win some merchandise. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that tomorrow night is Witness Night, so 10 o'clock UK time. I'm going to be live streaming my next attempt. I think is it my fifth go at trying to solve the puzzles in that game, which I'm enjoying mightily, and I really like the fact there's sort of live audience interaction. So it'd be great to see you if you have the time to spend with me then. Now, with all that said, let's get on to this Whisper of the Killer Snake, and I'll read you the rules. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage. Digits cannot repeat within a cage. The cages themselves must be deduced. Each cage is a snake path of orthogonally connected cells that starts or ends at the cage sum cell. Okay, so we've got lots of cage sums here, and we have to build snakes off these, is what I'm thinking. Each cage is a minimum of 2 cells long. I can't remember if I've said that. Each cage is a snake path of orthogonally connected cells that starts or ends at the cage sum cell. I've already said that, haven't I? Each cage is a minimum of 2 cells long. Note that the snake line must not branch, must always have the small cage total clue in its top left corner, topmost prioritised over leftmost. So that's normal killer Sudoku placement of the cage totals. So let's just check we all understand what that means. Let's look at this 40 here. That means that this cage here could never go to this square and could never go to this square either. And that's because, of course, if this was in this 40 cage, then this 40 clue should be here, because this is a higher, and well, it's not more leftmost, but it's certainly a higher position in the grid than this one. So the 40 should be at the top left hand corner of that cage. So this 40 actually we can I mean, it's partially a bit of the solve, I suppose, to note this, but it must go to this cell initially. Now, what else have we got here? Your snake may touch itself. Good grief. Right, so this means that, let's try and think about that in this relation to this 40. Let's say the snake was merrily going along in this direction and then went down here. Now ordinarily, oh, whoa, I've managed to put that thing on. I don't know how I did that. Ordinarily, the snake, we would say the next cell of the snake would either be here or here. But here I think it's saying it could be there as well. Because the snake, oh, I know what I could do. I could turn on, can I turn on the thing that allows me to draw pens? Yeah, the pen tool, I'm going to turn that on. So ordinarily, the snake might be going this way, boom, boom, boom. And then for its next cell would either go down there or this way. But here it could go that way, I think is it saying. Because although this cell here is connected to this cell here, whoa, now I want to go back here. So this cell here is connected to this cell here orthogonally. Therefore the snake is sort of touching itself orthogonally. That is apparently allowed in this puzzle. So, good. We can touch ourselves, or the snake can at least. Adjacent digits along each snake path must have a difference of at least 5. Right, and this is why this is called Whisper of the Killer Snake, because this is a German whispers constraint. So what we're doing here, let's imagine, oh, I'm still on this. Let's imagine we build a snake that looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll build it along 7 cells along here. Now, as we go along this snake, we've got to make sure that we alternate high, low, high, low. In other words, let's put in a digit here. Let's make this an 8. Now this square has to be at least 5 different from 8. So it could be a 3, it could be a 2, it could be a 1. Let's make it a 3. Now this square has to be at least 5 different from 3, but it can't be 8 because 8's already in the box. So that would have to be 9 now. It could not be 7 because 7 is only 4 away. Now this square would have to be a 2 or a 1, and then this square would have to be, if this was a 1, this could be a 6. Oh no, but it couldn't be a 6 because then that, oh no, it could be a 6 because that could be a 1, and those ones aren't in the same column. So yeah, so hopefully you'll get that's giving you an idea of how these things might develop. Cages may not overlap is the final bit of the rule, so there is an immense rule set to this. But the interesting thing is, it feels, at least now I've read them, like it's fairly intuitive, i.e. we've got to build some cages, the cages move like German whispers, and we can touch ourselves. That's all we have to know. Do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video. It's taken me 8 minutes to get through the rules, good grief. But anyway, now I get to play at least, so let's get cracking. And one of the things actually I'll just mention is that we do try and keep the rules of the puzzles we show relatively simple. Actually, we get some incredibly complicated rules sent to us. But we will make an exception. If a puzzle is that good, and Mark solved this and he says it's brilliant, then that's no problem. We don't mind complicated rules. Right, okay, now I think what we have got to think about here is this and this, the 40 cages, because there is something I know about a German whispers line, and it's going to be quite interesting in relation to a 40 cage, because a German whispers line can never have a 5 on it. And that's because if you put a 5, let's imagine this is a German whispers line and we put a 5 on it, what's the next digit going to be? It's got to be at least 5 away from 5, so it's either a 0, that's not going to work, or it's a 10 or higher. Neither of those is going to work, so you can never have a 5 on a German whispers line. Now this cage here, because of the secret and the fact you can't put a 5 on a German whispers line, we actually know that this is an 8-cell cage. And do we know more than that? Don't know if we know more than that, but we know that this is an 8-cell cage, and we know that this is an 8-cell cage. And why do I know it's an 8-cell cage? Well, that's because if you add up all of the digits from 1 to 9, once each, you get 45. That's the secret. But so the maximum size of snake we could draw in this grid, given that we can't repeat digits in a cage, is 8 cells. Because anything larger than 8 cells, i.e. a 9-cell cage, could contain all the digits 1 to 9, but would have a 5 on it, which would break the German whisper. So, this and this are 8-cell cages. But actually, having said that, the weird thing about that, I can extend this one down, but you can't actually do much. I don't know where that goes, do I? It can't go there, because then this 40 clue would be in that cell. But it can be either of those cells, I think. Bobbins. That's really strange. I thought it was going to be... No, okay, I don't understand that. And now I'm getting quite concerned about solving the puzzle at all, because I'd assumed these were going to be the restricted cages. Right, anyway, let's go on. Let's try the 7 cage. That's got to be difficult, hasn't it? Because of the German whispers constraint. What you can't do, for example, is put a 2 in this cage, because if you put a 2 in it, the other digit has to be at least 5 away from 2. Well, that's 7, and that 2 and 7 add to 9. So the only way you can ever form a 7 cage, given that you can't just put 7 into it because you can't have a 1-cell cage, is going to be with the digits 1 and 6. So this square is a 1 or a 6, and one of those 2 squares is also a 1 or a 6. I don't know if we know which one it is. I don't think we do. Okay, well, let's try a 10 cage then. I think the German whispers thing is going to be quite tricky. Oh, bobbins. I've just realised it could be 1, 2, 7. I was about to say it's probably got to be a 2-cell cage. Oh, for goodness sake, no, it can be. It could be 1. Whoa, I didn't mean to do that there. Oh, it's because I've got the pen line turned on, and my number of spaces I'm hitting is not the same as usual. Let's turn it off again. So this could be, if that was a 1, oh no, that can't be a 1 because there's a 1 going to be in, oh, let's say that's a 2, then this could be a 7, that's 5 away, and then that could be a 1, and the 1 is 5 away from the 7. So that could be 2, 7, 1. Now, if it's not 3 cells, I think that must be the only way of making a 3-cell total work. And there, you know, because if you put a 6 in here, you can't put 1 and 3 in the cage because the 3 and the 6 will be too close to each other and they're not 5 apart. You can't repeat a digit, so something like 181 won't work. So if it's not a 3-cell cage, then we can't use 4, 6 because 4 and 6 are too close together. You can't use 3, 7 because they're too close together. 2 and 8 might work, and 1 and 9 might work, although that would have to be a 9 here. And then I suppose it would have to be a 1 here. So actually there are loads of options for this. This is difficult. This is much harder than I thought. What about this 8? That's got to be a 2-cell cage because well, if we think about a 3-cell cage adding up to 8, 1, 2, 5 would be the most stretched apart we could get the digits to be, but obviously we can't put a 5 on a German whispers line. So this is a 2-cell cage, and therefore it's got to be 1. It's got to be 1, 7. 2, 6 won't work because 2 and 6 are not 5 apart, or at least 5 apart. So this one we know a little bit about. What about 9 then? Does that have to be a 2-cell cage? So 9, if we think about the 3 ways of making 9 with 3 different digits, we've got 1, 2, 6, that doesn't work because 2 and 6 aren't far enough apart. 1, 3, 5, and 2, 3, 4, no. So this is a 2-cell cage. Oh, it's a 2-cell cage that must go down because of where if we try and go this way, this should have the 9 in it. So that's forced. That's got to be a 2-cell cage. And it's got to be in exactly those positions. Now, the digits are not 3 and 6. They're too close together. Oh, 2 and 7 does work, doesn't it? And then 1 and 8 will work as well. Bother. So there are a couple of ways of making that work. What I think is strange, though, is that I can't build any of these cages out. The 10 cage obviously can never rise into row 8 of the grid, or this 10 clue should have appeared in row 8 of the grid. So this 10, Oh, it can be 3 cells, can't it? So it's either 2 cells there or it's 3 cells. It's definitely those 2 cells. Maybe this one. The 14. 14 can't be 2 cells, can it? Because 9 and 5 are not 5 apart. So it's at least... No, actually a 14 is exactly 3 cells. It can't be 4 cells, because if it's 4 cells it would have to have 2 high digits on it, and 6 plus 7 is already 13, and you can't make the other 2 low digits add up to 1. So this is 3 cells, and it's either got 2... Oh, right, it's either going to be 6, 7, 1, if it's got 2 high digits on it, or if it's got 2 low digits on it. If it's got 2 low digits on it. I'm just thinking whether 8 works. I don't think 8 does work. Because if I've got... Oh no, that would work. 8... No, it doesn't work. That's... Oh, but maybe I... No, it doesn't. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. If you put 2 low digits on, even if you put a kink in it like this, because you can't go double 3, because if you go double 3, you've repeated 3 in the cage. So how are you going to, if you put 8 on the line here, how are you going to make those 2 squares add up to 6 if you can't use a digit that's within 5 of 8? There's no way of doing it. This has to be a maximum of 3. And if it can't be double 3, and it can't, you can't get to 8. So that's not 8. So if this does go low, high, low, that's the middle digit is a 9. And then those 2 squares, and then 9 gives you complete flexibility in terms of how you make the other 5. You can either do 1, 4 or 2, 3. Whoa, whoa. So there's loads of optionality here. This 14... is right. From the logic we just did there, we know it's a 3-cell cage, and from its position in the grid it must be that. There we go. So that's forced. That middle digit therefore must be restricted, because, well, we have to think about parity of the German whispers. It's either going to be 2 high digits, in which case we know that's going to be a 1, or it's going to be 2 low digits, in which case we know that's going to be a 9. So this is a 1 or a 9. Now, that's interesting, coming back to this 10 cage, presumably, because now this cannot be a 2-cell 1-9 cage. So it's either a 2-cell 2-8 cage, or it's a 3-cell cage, which would be 1, 2, and 7. So all I know is that there's definitely a 2 in one of those 3 cells. I better remove the pencil mark there. There's definitely a 2 in one of these 3 cells. 16 cage? A 16 cage, I think that could even be 4 cells, because it could be 6, 7, 1, and 2. There's something I'm missing about this, because this is not at the moment possible to do it. The 40 cages, there must be something about those that's... You can't put 5 on them. Oh, right, yes, of course. Yes, of course, right. Okay, let's think about a German whispers line. What are the difficult digits on a German whispers line? This is what I should have done at the start. What are the difficult digits on a German whispers line? 5, we know, is just ruled out, but that's still not the end of the story, because what you can't do, let's imagine that was a German whispers line, what you can't do is put a 6 in the middle of it. If you put a 6 in the middle of a German whispers line, you've got to do double 1 there and there, and that won't work, because on this side, obviously 5 away, the only digit available is 1. On this side, the only digit that's available is 1. And the same is true of 4. If you put 4 on a German whispers line, the only digit that can go next to it is 9. So, this is presumably I've got a 4-6 pair there and there, because if you think about this German whispers line, which is of length 8, I've got no idea how it moves, but I do know this is one end of it. And I've got to put 4 and 6 somewhere along this string of digits, whatever this looks like. It's got to have a 4 and a 6 at the ends, because if I put 4 in the middle of the line, I will have to repeat 9 either side of it. So this square is a 4 or a 6. This square is a 4 or a 6. There you go. It's actually beautiful. It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? Oh, this is, yeah, more beautiful, because this 7 clue is a 1-6 pair. I don't know where it goes, but it's 1 and 6. So that's a 4 and we have a digit. That's a 6 and we have a digit. Another digit. Oh, this one I can do better, because we know that this is the second cell in this 40 cage, and it's now got to be a 1. But then the next digit is going to be less difficult, isn't it? It's got to be a high digit. Although I'm just thinking about that, I've still got to be a bit careful here, because the other side of this line somewhere is a 4, which means I've still got to put 7 on the line. And 7 has to be in the middle of the line. And the only digits 7 can go next to are 1 and 2. So does that mean... Right, that's really interesting, actually. That is really interesting. Because what I'm now wondering is whether this is actually forced. I'm just going to do this just to play through it. I'm just going to imagine that this goes just horizontally, just so I can think about how it moves, because I think that digit has to be a 7, because the 7 needs to have a 1 and a 2 on both sides of it. That would mean that digit's a 2. Yeah, now the 8. So now I've got to put 8 in the middle of the line, and the 8 can't access the 1. And the 8 can't be next to the 4, so the 8 must be next to the 2 and the 3, which means that must be a 9, and there must be a 4 at the end of the line. That's beautiful, isn't it? So actually, because the start or end of the line is fixed as a 4 or a 6, the whole string of digits on the 40 cage is forced. So, and this is basically like a palindrome now. This one is going to go 6, 1, 7, 2, 8, 3, 9, 4 into some cells. This one is going to go the other way. It's going to go 4, 9, 3, 8, 2, 7, 1, 6. So that means the next digit on this one is a 9, and that must be in a valid position in terms of the killer cage total, so it's in one of those two cells, I think. Can't go here, or the 40 total should be in that cell. Now this one I've got to be more careful with. This one, the next digit is a 7, but that's really annoying, isn't it? Although might be something going on with that 7 up there, but what I'm just thinking is this 7 absolutely could go here, because the snake can touch itself, so we can make our snake turn the corner here and touch itself in 2 positions, no less. It can't go there, because then it'll have to branch. So it's going to have to... So if it did turn left there, it would have to come out that way. Or, I suppose, like that. But I think one of those 3 squares has to be a 7. But what I've noticed is I've got a 1-6 pair in this column, so that square cannot be a 1 or a 6. So this 7 is now forced to come downwards and be a 1-6 pair like this. So that's a 1-6 pair. Which means 6, look, is in one of those 3 positions just by Sudoku, and 1 is in one of those 3 positions by Sudoku. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that this 10 cage now can't be 3 cells or not? So the only way a 10 cage can be 3 cells is if it's 1, 2 and 7. So this square would have to be a 2 or a 7. But we would have to get to a 1 that we could, which would have to be that square. Isn't that going to break that square, or am I wrong? Hang on. So, if this is going to try and be 3 cells, it has to be 2, 1, 7. The only one it can get to is that one within 3 cells of it. So that has to be a 1. Therefore, this has to be a 2 because we've got to maintain the parity of the German whisper, and that has to be a 7. And that square has no fill. I think that must be good logic. I definitely can't put a 1 in this column anywhere. So this square is not, or this cage is a 2-cell cage. Right, okay, and if it's a 2-cell cage, it can't be 1, 9. Because we can't put a 1 in it. There's no way a 1 can go. So this is a 2, 8 cage. That's lovely. So that's a 2, 8 cage. We'll reward it with its own colour, which we'll make blue. And one of those 2 squares is a 2 or an 8. But I don't know if we know which one. I don't even want to pencil mark it, to be honest. Wow. Right. So now what do we do? Can we do something with that 10 cage? Do we know anything about this? We know something about this square. This square can't be a 1. Okay, this can't be a 1, 9 cage because the 1 and the 9 have already gone in the box. So this is not 1, 9. So it's either 2, 8 or it's 1, 2, 7. But this square itself then still couldn't be a 1. So this is a 2, 7 or an 8. This is an 8-cell cage that starts with a 4, 9. I don't know what this means, but it is very interesting, and that's all I ask for. So, how do we make more progress? Is this 10 cage now also restricted? So this 10 cage can't be 1, 9. 7. The 7 that's attaching to this red 40 cage is in one of those 3 squares. So you can't put a 7 in either of those squares. And if you can't, right, if you're going to try and use a 3-cell cage, one of the first 2 digits would have to be a high number and would have to be a 7, which it can't be. So this is a 2-cell cage that's not 1, 9. This is 2 and 8. Wow, wow, wow. That's not a 6. Okay. Well, that's interesting and all, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So that's 2 or 8. I have not got a clue what that means. Do we... This one's going to go 6, 1, and then a 7, and then a 2. Then a 2, which I now can't put in this... This is beautiful. Right, okay. This is absolutely lovely. Right, so let's think about how this snake progresses now. Because it goes 6, 1, 7, 2. We worked that out before. Now, the 7 is in one of these 3 positions. If the 7 is here, where are we putting the 2? We can't put it here, because then this would be the top leftmost corner of the cage. So it's going to have to go here, which it can't go in. There's already a 2 in box 7 already, and it's been hypothecated towards the 10 snake. Same thing is true here, obviously. So neither of those is 7. This is a 7. That must be a 6 by Sudoku. This turns red. And now we can just get a 2 into this square by the looks of things. So that's not a 1, that's a 2. This 14 cage is now becoming interesting as well, because its only valid cell for its next position is that one. And we know it's not a 2-cell cage, and it can never go into row 5, because then this total should be higher, so it's got to do that. And didn't we? Yeah, we worked out 14 cages have to be 3 cells. So those 3 cells are their own cage. Okay, and we know the parity of this, because we worked out earlier again that if this was using 2 high digits, it would have to be a 6 and a 7, and that square can be neither. So this has to be it has to go low, high, low. So these are 2 low digits, which means they're 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And this is a high digit. Now, does that mean it is a 9? It does mean it's a 9, because we worked that out, didn't we? You can't put an 8 in the middle, because you can't go double 3 on the edges. Yes, so that's another digit. That's a 9. Okay, these 2 are adding up to 5. Okay, and what's the next digit we need along this snake? After the 2, we need a high digit that's an 8. So there is an 8 in one of those 2 squares, I think. Now, after the 8, we must have a 3. And the 3 could go in any of those 3 positions, I think. Yes, okay, because it can't go up from here because it's going to hit the 14 cage. So there's an 8 in one of those and a 3 in one of those. And then the next digit's going to be 9. 2, 3. But the 9, well, the 9 can't go in that row. But the 9 could go in this box. Or here, or actually, oh dear, could it go back on itself somehow? Maybe it can't, because I don't think this snake can go back into box 7 anymore because of this 6. So maybe the 9 is a bit restricted, actually. I think it could go here, which would be very useful because it would fix that cell. Or perhaps in any of those 3 cells. It can't go here because of that 9, so I think it's just those 3 have to be a 9, but I don't really want to pencil that because I'm not going to remember what a pencil mark in this box means. I don't think. I think it will be strange. So, what else do we do then? We've got to... I don't know. Well, okay, this 8 now can only take that square, so that's a 1-7 pair, so that's an easy win. That means this square's not a 1, so that means that square's not a 4. I want to use this snake up here. I definitely feel this is an underused snake. This snake needs to do more slithering. Right, snake, slither along. What can we learn about you? You've got a 9 in one of those cells. And then your next digit is a 3. And then your next digit is an 8. Wow, I mean, that just does not seem... Oh, maybe is that the point? You can't put the 8 in this box. Hang on. So I've just realised that, in fact, that's going to affect this. This 2-8. Yes, okay, I didn't find a good way of pencil marking this, did I? But wherever this 2-8 goes, it's using up 2 and 8 in the box. So this square can't be a 2, and that square can't be a 3. But maybe more important than that, this snake, its 4th position is an 8. I'm almost wondering about checkerboard logic here, because its fourth position, therefore, is on the same checkerboard colour as the 9s here. Now, that means, I think, that the 8 could be, let's think about that, same checkerboard pattern. So it could be here. We can rule that out because there's already used the 8 in the 10 cage. It could be here. That's, again, ruled out. Now, what it can't be is here, because this is not the same checkerboard pattern as those 9s. So its only other opportunity is going to exist in box 2. So I think the 8 from this 40 cage is in box 2. And it could be as far away as that. If this just goes in a straight line, 9, 3, 8, that could be an 8. But it could also be there. And I think that's it. It can't go higher. It can't go like that, because then this square would be the 40 clue. This is fascinating. It would also pen in the 10 cage. Oh. That's interesting. So, I was just wondering now, if I know there's an 8 in this box that belongs to this clue, how is it still possible for this to be 2 and 8? If this is 2, 8 and it goes down, that cell is broken, so it doesn't do that. If it's 2, 8 and it goes horizontal, this square cannot be a 2 and it cannot be an 8, so it's not. This square here, or this cage, is a 2, 7, 1 cage. But, having said that, all I can do, I think, is get rid of the 8, isn't it? Or am I going mad? Because, how does this move then? I don't think this can be 8, because I don't think you can put, you can't put 2 here, you can't put 2 there. So this is 2 or 7. Now if it's 2, 7, 1, 7 can't go there, so it would have to go 2, 7, and then 1 in one of those two, which looks actually plausible, doesn't it? So one possibility is this is 2 here, 7 here. If this is 7, the problem is I think it can come down. Oh no, it can't. Oh, hang on, I'm being silly. The parities, or once this is a 3-cell cage, which is what we've worked out it is, its parity is known. It's got to have 2 low digits on it, so this is a 2. Oh wow, so this is a 2 and this is an 8. Sorry, I was incredibly slow about that. Now this second digit is a 7, and it can't go there. There's a 7, so that's a 7. Now there's a 1 in one of those 2 cells, so this I need to label up. This is a cage, and one of those 2 is its final piece. And we've got a 2 here and a 2 here, so there's a 2 in one of those 3 cells by Sudoku. We've got a 7 here, a 1 in one of these squares. This thing is taking a 9 in one of those, then it needs a 3. Now that 3, we don't know where it goes, I don't think. But I think it's either there or there, because it's got to connect to the 2 possible positions of 8s. So the 3 is in one of those cells. It then goes 8. Oh, those 8s marry up down there as well. Is that right? So we've got an 8 in one of these 2 on this snake, and then we've got an 8 in one of those 2 on that snake. That means the 8 in column 6, look, has to be in one of those cells, which is apparently useless. And then after 8 we go down to 2, don't we? Oh, and then we go to 7. This is really very, very cool. So I'm now wondering whether... Oh, 7 is a problem. 7 is a problem, I think. Hang on. We need to look at this, because after we go to 8, We've now got to go to 2 as the next digit on this snake. Now the problem with this is there's probably going to be a multitude of possibilities for where the 2 can go. Although I'm noting it can't go. So after the 8, if this is the 8, where is the 2 that this 8 connects to? It's not there. It's not here. It's not here because of these 2's. So it has to be there. Okay, so one possibility is the 2 is here. The only other possible position for the 8 is here. And that can't be a 2. That can't be a 2 because it's higher than the 40. That can be a 2. So the 2 is in one of 2 places, I think. Now the digit I'm interested in, though, I think is the next digit, which is a 7 on this snake. Because that 7 cannot go in this box here. And it cannot go in this box either because the 7's here. So where does this 2 get a 7 from? Nowhere. That's not the 2. This is lovely. That's not the 2. So this is the 2. And if that's the 2, that's the 8. And if that's the 8, that's the 3. And if that's the 3, that's the 9. QED, I think. That places a 1 here. Oh yes, because we said that the 2, 7 needs a 1 to make up 10. So that's blue. Those are all purple. And now hopefully we're going to be able to put a 7 on this snake. This 1 is giving us a 1, 6. We might be away here. 1, 6 here. 1 is in one of those 3 cells. 2 is in one of those 3 cells. In fact, those squares there are known. They're 5, 6 and 7, aren't they? So that's not a 7. Which means that's not a 2 because they're adding up to 9. This 1 is giving us a 1 there and a 7 there, which means there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares by Sudoku. There's a 7 in one of these 2 squares by Sudoku again. There's a 7 in one of those 2 squares, and we know there's a 7 over here. Okay, so what is our next challenging digit on this 40 snake? We need to put the 7 in. We know that the 7 can't go in this box. So it must go in this box, and that's the 7. And that extends our snake one more cell. And our snake still hasn't touched itself, which is very disappointing. Now the next digit is going to be a 1. Now the 1, well, it's not there. And it's not in a higher cell than that 40, so it must be there. That's got to be a 1, I think. That means this is not a 1. These 2 squares are not 1. This square, if it's not 1, means this square is not 8. That turns purple. And that means that now we still need to put a 6 on this snake. And that 6, it can't be there because there's already a 6 in one of those 2 squares. The 6 could be here. Or it could, I suppose, be there if the snake touches itself. So the 6 is in one of those 2 positions. Again, we don't have a good way of pencil marking that because it's across 2 boxes. I'm feeling we can do some Sudoku and figure all this out, but I can't see exactly where the breaking is. So we've got a 2 in one of those cells by Sudoku. Now let's come back to the other snake, because this snake is also a lengthy snake. And there's an 8 here now, so that's not an 8. And we know the next digit on this snake is an 8, so it's got to be there. That seems to have taken the pencil mark of a 1, so that's got to be a 1 there. The 8, after the 8 comes a 3, so that's a 3. There's now a 3-8 pair in box 5. I just love Joseph Nama's puzzles, and it's because he always pitches the difficulty perfectly. This is going to be famous last words, but basically they're always there's enough of a struggle, but they aren't absolutely monstrous, and the logic is just beautiful. Now we've got to put a high digit next on this, so it's a 9 next. Now the 9, look, has a very huge number of places it can go. Although I can get rid of that one because there's a 1 here, and that's fixing that, which might be important. So that can't be a 9. So the 9 is in one of 2 places in box 8. And this 9 is perhaps where we should look now, because those 2 have to add up to 5. We've got a 1, 2 pair in the row, so that's a 3 or a 4, that's a 1 or a 2. Okay, and then wherever the 9 goes, the next digit's going to be a 4. So if that's the 9, you have to put the 4 here. If that's the 9, 4 can still be in 3 places, I think. And every time we keep getting this thing where we have to cross the boxes, which is very, very tricky. If you could limit the 4 to one of those 2 squares, they would see that cell, look, so you could eliminate 4 from this. Okay, so we're stuck, or I'm stuck. Where do we look now? We seem to have done... Do we know what that does? Do we even know? Oh, we know that's a 2-seller, don't we? So it's either a 2 and an 8 here, or it's a 2 and an 8 there. So if it was here, this would be 8, this would be 2. I don't know, I don't see how to do that. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, 3 in that box has to be vertical. Okay, so this is done, this is done. 3, no, 8, no. I'm looking for something to do and spotting nothing. I have a feeling it must be Sudoku because I'm not seeing anything from the snakes. Which snakes have we not done? We've not done this one. Is there a way we can do this one easily? Not immediately obvious to me that we can. These 4 squares here are 1s, 3s, 4s and 5s. So that square is a 3 or a 5. Maybe it's something like that. These 3 squares in this column are 4s, 5s and 6s, look. No, I don't think it's going to be that. If I could work out this one, it might be useful. So this is either 2 and 7, which would be very useful. That would place a 7 down there. Or it's 8 here, which would place an 8. Actually, either way round, this looks quite interesting. Well, there's a virtual 1-2 pair in column 9, because we know we're using a 1 and a 2 in one of the squares in this domino, and that square's a 1 or a 2. Okay. But all of these things said and done, they're not actually helping me to solve the puzzle. So, what have we not considered? Maybe we know one of those squares is a 6. I was about to say that means that's not a 6, but we can already see that that's not a 6, because it can only be a 3 or an 8. 6, 1, 2, 8, 3. Next cell is a 9. Now, is there a reason we can't use a 9 here? Don't think so. Is there a reason this can't be a 9? Don't think so. And then after that we get a 4, and we know virtually nothing about 4s. I don't think this line is the key. That is what I'm concluding here. So we're going to have to think about something else. 2 7s, 1s. Is it going to be something like, where do you put a 7 in column 9? The answer is bother. It's one of. Is it definitely one of those 2 positions, though? You can't put a 7 there, that's for sure, because of that 7. And you can't put a 7 here because of that 7. So the 7 is in these 3 squares. So it's one of 2 positions for a 7. That does look like it gets me a 7 here, which gets me a 7 here. It's no surprise that it's Sudoku that was holding me up. Aha! There we go, there we go. Now I've got a 1-2 pair, 1-2 pair here. That means these squares have to be 1s and 2s. That square can't be a 1. So that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 4. Now that must put pressure. Oh, hang on, does it not put pressure on it? So I'm just trying to think about... Yes, okay. Now we ask the question, where does the 4 go that attaches to this snake here? Because if this is a 9, that's the 4. And if this is a 9, all its orthogonal neighbours have been used up apart from this one. So this is always a 4. And this is red. But weirdly, we don't know which the 9 is. But we do know now there's a 4 in one of those 2 cells. Which, oh no, it doesn't do anything. 4 in one of these 2 cells. This 1 I can see is doing some more work, look, because that's forcing that to be a 7, and therefore this is a 2. This 7 gives me a 7 here, which means there's a 7 here. How many 7s have we done? The answer is all of them. Okay, that's not surprising. That felt like a whole flurry of 7s, didn't it? Now, what do? We've got to put 2 in one of those cells, 1 in one of those cells, not that one. This 10 cage has finally got resolved by this 7. That's got to be blue, which means that's a 2 or an 8. And we've got a 2 down here, so we can do this. 2 and 8 go into the grid. 8 in box 1 has to go there. There's an 8 in one of these squares. Keep going, keep going. It's another long video today. I hope you don't mind. We do monitor the comments quite carefully, and it does seem that people don't mind long videos when the puzzles are this good. So I hope, as I say, you don't mind if it takes me a while to solve some of these puzzles. Our goal, of course, is just to show you the very best puzzles, and this is definitely one of the very best puzzles, so it seems entirely appropriate. It should be on the channel. 3 is not there, look. This is a 5 or a 9. Okay, has that just dwindled out? 2 here. That's not a 2. Right, okay, I've now got a 1-2 pair in box 6. I haven't thought about this 16 cage for a while. So, can we do the parity of this at least now? Maybe actually I just do Sudoku on this cell, do I? What can this be? Let's actually just list the options. It can be 3. It can't be 4. It can't be 5 because it's on a German Whispers line. Can it be 6? Maybe. Can't be 7, can't be 8. So it's 3, 6 or 9. So if it's 3, it then has to go there, doesn't it? Because... Oh, that's in... No, it's not 3. It's not 3 because rather beautifully, its only digit that it can then go to is this one, because it has to go to a high digit because of the German Whisper property. It can't go that way because the 16 clue should then be in that cell. So it's got to go this way because this can only be a 1 or a 2. So it goes this way, and now this square doesn't seem to be able to be a 7, 9 or an 8. So it's forced to be a 6, and 3 and 6 are not 5 apart. So that is not a 3, it's a 6 or a 9. And now we know the parity of the 16 clue. It's got... Well, actually, it's either got 3 or 4 digits. It could still be 6, 1 or 2. Then it needs to then it needs to get a 7. No, it can't. Okay, so it doesn't. It's not 4 digits. That's what I think we're concluding here. Because if it's got 4 digits, it needs to collect a 7 from somewhere in its 3rd position. But it can't get one. It can't take that one. That's already been hypothecated to the 9. And it can't get to this one as its 3rd digit. So this is 3 cells. So if it goes 6, 6, 2, 6. Oh no, it can't go 6, 2, of course, because that wouldn't break. So if it's 6, you have to go 6, 1, which would have to be there. 6, 1, and then a high digit, which has to be a 9 to get to. Oh, that doesn't work. Hang on, I think I've broken this. If this is 6, you have to go 1 as the next digit because of the German whisper. It has to be this cell, and now I've got to put 9 as the next digit, and I can't put a 9 in any of those 3 cells, so that's broken. I think this is a 9, and if it's a 9, yes, this is lovely, isn't it? If I go 9, 2, 7 or something like that, I'm going to break the total. So I've got to go 9, 1, 6. And I can't put a 6 in those squares because of that set. It's got to go straight down. I think this goes 9, 1, 6. And I'll put those in green. That's not touching anything else that's green. And that looks interesting immediately because that gives me a 2 here. And it gives me a 3 here, which means that's a 2. And that's a 5, and that's a 3. And that 3 is giving me a 3 and an 8 in that box, look. So is this breaking the puzzle open? Those squares have got to be a 4, 5 pair. Don't know if that's resolved. That 6 is giving me a 6 and a 5 up here though, which is a little bit interesting. There's a 6 in one of those 2 squares. This column is awfully full now. It needs a 3 and an 8. The only place for the 8 to go is up there. That square's got to be a 3. That square can't be a 5. So this is 4, 6 and 9 into those squares. 4, 6, 9. And that's not possibly, that's not going to be a 4. Okay, 4, 6, 9. So that square's got to be a 5. That looks okay from a Sudoku perspective at least. These squares here are now not 4 and 8. They are 4 and 9 is a 9 there. So that's 9, that's 4, that's 4, that's 5. This column needs 3 and 8, which we can do. 3 and 8 go into the grid. Now those 2 squares now have to be 3 and 5, which we might not be able to do, but never mind. And those 2 squares have got to be 6 and 8, which we can do. 8 and 6 go in the grid. So this is now, the 1's placed. That's probably been placed for a while. This square's got to be a 4 to complete this column. That gives us a 5 here. These 2 squares are 4 and 6, which doesn't seem to be resolved. I'm going to have to check, actually, that I've used all my snakes up now. And these are a 5, 9 pair, which also doesn't seem to be resolved. Bobbins. Yeah, I should be able to resolve this, shouldn't I? One of those is a 9, and I don't seem to know which one. And in this row, we still need to put 4 somewhere, and that's got to be here. Which means this square is a 5 or a 9, it sees 5. So that's a 9, that's a 5, that's a 5, that's a 9. These 2 squares here are 3 and 9. That means that's a 9, that's a 3, that's a 3, that's a 5, that's a 5, and this is a 6. And that's a 6, and that's a 4, and that's a 4, and that's a 6, and that's a 9. So I think we've done the puzzle, but what we haven't done is to fill in all our snakes and make sure whether they're touching each other or not, or themselves or not. Several of them are touching each other. So what do we do here? We need to put a 9 on this one. It's got to go there, and that is now an 8-cell snake with different digits on it. And this one needed a 6. Aha! So it does. So this one is the naughty snake. This is the only snake that touches itself, I think. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's true. It seems to bend back and touch itself in these 2 squares. So we have discovered the naughty snake, and I hope we've done the puzzle. Another hour-long video, but what a brilliant brilliant Sudoku that is, as ever, from Joseph. Long rule set, long video, and snakes that touch themselves. You couldn't ask for any more. And let's just review the solve quickly, seeing as we're in a long video. I think the whole key for me actually was appreciating that these 40 cages are far more constrained than I first realised. I could quickly see they didn't have 5 on them and they were 8 cells long, but what I couldn't see until I got completely stuck was that actually, because we were told the start and end points of the snake, that was incredibly restricting on how they could move. And actually, this one in particular, the fact that some of the digits on it was so forced as a result of the other little snakes was really, really gorgeous. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.